Welcome to the Changing Earth podcast with Sarah F. Hathaway, blending survival, fiction, and fact to bring you entertaining education that'll help you dream, survive, and thrive. And now, here's your host, Sarah F. Hathaway.
Hello and welcome to episode 17 of the Changing Earth podcast. So last week in the day after disaster story, we found out that Vince and Dex are alive and Erica is so excited and she's now waiting for them to arrive at the cool camp. But in the meantime, Star has been shot in the leg, in the calf, and she's in a lot of pain and she's trying to heal up. So in these harsh conditions, that kind of injury could be a big problem without access to our hospitals that we have nowadays and things like that. And Erica, experiences that pain that she doesn't even know what to do at that point, because normally you just rush somebody down to a hospital because they've been shot. But in this type of circumstance, she's kind of got her hands tied and she doesn't even know where to go. So luckily the group that she is with take care of Star and they bring her back up to the cool camp where she is attended to by a nurse practitioner by the name of Ryan. So ironically enough, I met a really cool guy by the name of Dr. Ryan Chamberlain. So ironically enough, his name is Ryan as well. And this guy is a guy who has a lot of life experiences in field medicine. And he is just a wealth of information. So I was really happy to get him on the show. He's going to be with us on a few episodes. And he's going to talk survival medicine to us. And today he's going to talk to us about treating a bullet wound in the field and what you need to be doing to treat that injury and what you need to do to prevent the infection from setting in without antibiotics and things like that. So I'm super excited to welcome Ryan to the show. But first, let's go ahead and hear more of the day after disaster story. Day After Disaster by Sarah F. Hathaway, Chapter 17. Greg left to go and talk with the other guys that had come with him from the cool camp. Erica thought she recognized one of them, but wasn't sure. She sat immersed in her thoughts and soup until the spoon was finally scooping up the last pieces of meat in the bowl. Now that she knew her husband and son were alive and safe, her thoughts began to roam to other people she loved. She thought about her mother. She lived in Lotus, a town not too far from Coloma, and Erica hoped her mother was safe. She thought about her father over in Michigan and hoped he was safe as well. Then she thought of her brother Bob. He lived in Canada. He had taken a job there and had really liked living there. His wife, on the other hand, was not too pleased with leaving California and missed the weather. She thought of her husband's parents, who had been on a trip to Washington State visiting her husband's grandmother. There was lots of people that she was wondering about and felt frustrated that she could no longer just send out a text to see if they were all right or not. All she could do was pray to God for their safety or their acceptance into his kingdom. Greg had noticed that Erica was looking way too somber and hit her in the arm. Ow! What was that for? Erica quickly snapped out of her thoughts. Just seeing if you still got it, Greg replied sarcastically. Oh, I still got it. At least I'll still kick your butt anyway, Erica returned the jest. Well, let's see it, Greg prodded on. He stepped back with his hands and fists and began to dance around. Erica put down her bowl and got up with her hands balled into fists and gave him a swift kick to the booty. See, I told you I'd still kick your booty, she smiled wide. Oh, you're gonna get it, Greg replied as he started chasing after Erica, punching in the air after her. It felt great to Erica to act normal again, goofing with her friend in a very old game. Both Greg and Erica were trained in martial arts, and they often play-fought one another. Okay, G-Man, you better knock it off. Erica was getting out of breath, and realized the stress of her recent life might have taken a toll on her body. She needed a little more rest before she would be at full strength again. Oh, are you getting tired? Greg poked on. Yeah, actually I am, she admitted. Well, let me show you around then. I'll show you the new town of Cool, and the awesome pad I'm kicking it at now, he said. His words were thick with sarcasm. Is that where you get your chillaxing on nowadays? Erica teased. You got it. My dad's over there anyway with Mike Nostrom. Greg's voice sounded very cheerful. Really? Mike made it and your dad? What about Mike's kids, Chris and Bert? Erica wondered. Chris didn't make it, and we still haven't heard from Bert. Greg's cheerfulness suddenly turned somber. Oh, man. I'm sorry, Greg. Erica almost felt bad for even asking. Look, Erica, lots of people are gone, and the quakes keep coming. All we can do is live each day and hope that one day we can get things back to normal, Greg replied, trying to keep his voice steady. Erica could see that talking about the past was something that was hard for everyone to do. Not everyone had been as lucky as her. They had lost their families and now faced a bleak future alone. Erica decided right then that it would be better to leave the past there, in the past, and just focus on the future. She quickly changed the subject. Are those guys you were talking to going after Vince? Yeah, remember Denton from high school? Greg played right into her change of subject. I think so. He looked kind of familiar. Erica was thinking hard. She always remembered faces much better than names. Well, Vince used to coach him in wrestling. He's going over there with Rob Burton. I don't know if you remember him, but you had met him a couple times at the bar. He was in the military and loves to go on adventures, Greg stated. How long will it take them? Erica said impatiently. This was a moment she had been dreaming of for a very long time. Don't worry, they'll be back before you know it. The guy should make it there by midday, and they'll be back before nightfall, Greg said with a gleam in his eye. He knew Erica hated surprises, and her anxiousness delighted him. I guess I'll just have to wait then, Erica said with a sigh. Yes, you will. His delight was obvious. Let's go see everyone over at the camp, Greg said, urging her to come with him. Before we go over there, I need to tell Star what's going on. Erica didn't want Star to wonder where she was. Star needed to rest easy, not worry about being left behind. Great, let's go see her. Greg's enthusiasm for life was contagious, and they smiled as they walked lightheartedly over to the tent. When Erica pulled back the blanket that formed the doorway, she took in the interior for the first time in the daylight. Everything they had carried with them had been used for the tent's construction. The carts had been used for the corners, but they were covered on the inside with blankets. A tarp formed the top, and the remainder of the blankets formed the floor sleeping area. This made a cozy interior whose only purpose was for sleeping. It looked like one big giant bed, which it basically was. The only separated area was at the end, just on the other side of where the kids slept. This area was made for Richard and Joan because they were the only married couple with this group. Star's condition had the kids staying inside and amusing one another with dice and card games. Little Jim had a transformer toy that he retained from his former life, and Tyson still had a small red fire engine whose batteries were dead. Tyson made a great sound for the toy in an effort to mimic the sound it had once produced. Erica had to laugh because in the past she had said how horrible it was that the kids didn't have to use their imagination to play anymore. She noticed they learned pretty quickly once they had no other option. Erica! Star yelled enthusiastically. She was obviously feeling better, even though the pain in her leg was keeping her in bed. Erica was surprised to see her in such a joyous mood. Hey, baby, how you feeling? Erica questioned. She was so concerned about Star, hoping her leg would not be permanently affected by the shooting. I'm doing okay, Erica. The doctor came by this morning while you were in the bath. He rewrapped my leg and said it was doing much better. He said if I did a good job of resting today, I may be able to go out tomorrow. That's great, Star. We'll have to see how it goes. Erica was thinking that she would have to stop by and talk with this doctor. It was weird to have the group taking care of one another so much that she had not even talked with the doctor treating her newly adopted daughter yet. Who's that, Erica? Star interrupted her thoughts with her question while she was pointing at Greg. This is Greg. He's one of my very best friends. Erica put her arm around Greg and gave him a big hug. He's cute, Star blurted out, turning a little red. Yeah, real cute, Erica said sarcastically while giving Greg a poke in his ribs. Well, I think you are very cute too, little lady, Greg said flirtatiously to Star, which made her blush an even deeper red. Anyway, Erica broke up the playful banter. Greg always did have a way with the ladies, and even a girl of just 8 years old picked up on it immediately. We are going over to the camp and cool to talk with some folks. and I want to check it out. Will you be all right here with Tyson and little Jim? Yeah, they're not so bad. We're actually having a lot of fun. Star had a sincere glimmer of youth and hope in her eyes again, and Erica loved it. What's up, Tyson and little Jim? Greg questioned, trying to include the two boys in the conversation. Little Jim shied back and hid behind Tyson, but Tyson replied, Nothing. What's up with you? And stuck his chest out a little. Oh, a big tough guy. I better watch out, Greg said playfully. That's right, you better, Tyson said, feeling a bit big for his britches. Well, in that case, Greg grabbed Tyson and rolled around with him on the blankets. Then little Jim jumped on Greg's back and the three of them wrestled and laughed. Erica just stood and watched. It was healing for the heart. Finally, Greg got up and told the boys, And now I'm going to give this fine lady here a tour, and I will see you tough guys and cute girl later. He gave Star a wink and the boys a high five before he turned towards the tent opening. Okay, Star, you be good, and you two rascals be good too. I'll see you all in a little bit. Erica gave Star a big hug and headed towards the door with Greg. As the two stepped back into the bright sunlight, Greg said, That's some girl there, Erica. I know. She really needs me. And how could I not take her with me? How she came to me is something I don't know if I'm really ready to face yet, so please don't ask. Erica knew Greg's thought pattern and had a good feeling that the question of where she came from would be on his mind. She wanted to stop that conversation before it even began. It's cool, Erica. You can tell me when you're ready. Let's go see my dad. Greg was actually trying to stay cheerful anyway, and a depressing story wasn't going to accomplish that. All right, let's go, Erica said with a bounce in her step. The two walked on, consumed in their own thoughts. So much pain gave people a lot to reflect on, and the silences that might have been uncomfortable before were now quite welcome. It gave you time to put things in perspective and to decide how a person would go on living, having seen and done the horrible things they had to do for survival. The ground still made a crunch-crunch sound as they walked along. The season was coming to an end of a very long and profound summer, but summer was not done yet. The hot sun in California usually turned most plant life crackly by the end of summer, but with all the burnt debris around, it was like walking on a charcoal grill. The two made their way down the hill towards the area where a Chinese restaurant and a post office had been. The long building had burnt to the ground. The leftover wood had been built into a watchtower that overlooked the canyon area that led up to the camp. Howdy, Greg, a young girl with a ditzy smile shouted from the top of the watchtower. Hi, Michelle, Greg replied half-heartedly. Are you going to be around the campfire tonight? Michelle asked flirtatiously. Of course I am. Where the hell else would I be? Greg replied, kind of annoyed. Well, I'll see you then, Michelle yelled as Greg and Erica kept crunching along to the cool camp. Nice, Greg. Got a little honey on the side? Erica poked at him in fun. Hey now, let me tell you how hard it is to find a booty call around here. The pickings are pretty limited, you know, Greg replied arrogantly. Same old Greg, still pimping the hose, teased Erica. Hey, just because the end of the world is coming doesn't mean that good old G-Man ain't going to be screwing his brains out. We've got to repopulate and everything, right? Greg was obviously thrilled to have this excuse to use on the ladies. Whatever, Greg. Some things just don't change, and your libido is obviously one of those things. Erica absolutely loved this. Walking along with her friend, making fun of the same old things, made her realize that life would go on. People would adapt to this new life. They would find their old comforts and rebuild their broken lives. The two friends finally crossed the old highway, or what used to be the highway. The earthquake had left its mark in a big way. It was all twisted like half a taco. It was as if the whole mountain had heaved up and rolled it like a delicate dessert. Well, you definitely won't have to worry about traffic on that road anymore. Erica often used humor to explain the shocking things in life. And right now, she was feeling very humorous. No kidding. I used to complain and complain about that traffic. And why did they have to build that darn bridge? The canyon used to keep all those people out. But I guess we won't have that worry anymore. The bridge snapped like a twig. And who the heck is going anywhere anyway? Where do you think you could go, Erica? I mean, if you were to go somewhere, where in this world would you be safe? Greg was suddenly very serious. I don't know, Greg. Maybe up into the mountains further? Definitely around some water. Speaking of water, Cool's not close by a river. What's everyone drinking? Erica countered his direct comments at the reality of this new world. We have a big well that is still working, and they rigged up this cool bike that you can ride on and it pumps the pump. That way it's easy to get a lot of water. Where do you think that wonderful bath water came from? Greg was teasing her again. That's why I was curious, you jerk, she replied. Hey, I lugged half that water all the way up there for your bath. They told me it was for their savior, and it was very important that they give you a hot bath. Little did I know that the savior was little Erica. I would have let you carry your own darn water, he said, giving her a shot to the arm again. Oh, thanks, Erica said seriously. He laughed at her. No, for real. Thanks. I really appreciated that bath. So what's up with the savior talk? Greg pondered. That Auburn camp over on the other side of the river was going to attack that little river camp. I was on my way across and I heard the plan, so I warned the river people, and they left with me. I guess they think I saved them, but really we saved each other. Erica didn't feel like a savior and was playing it off. That makes sense, Greg said flatly. It is so cool that Erica is finally connected with her good friend, her lifelong friend, Greg. He's a great guy, a pivotal role in my stories, and so it's a lot of fun to introduce this character to you. So next week, they're going to do more exploring of the Cool Camp. I just kind of led you up to that part during this week's episode. But next week, they're going to go through and you get to see what's going on in the camp and how people are surviving this in each little pocket of this small little community. So it's kind of cool how that works. And like I say, it's exciting to me because this is, I'm writing about my own community. This is the town that I actually live in. And some of the featured places are actually here in existence. They actually exist here in town. So that was exciting for the business owners and things like that. But right now, I'm going to go ahead and welcome Dr. Ryan Chamberlain. Dr. Chamberlain was born and raised near the Hanford Nuclear Reservation in Washington State. After graduating from Washington State University, he attended the College of Osteopathic Medicine of the Pacific in Sonoma, California, and in 1995 graduated as a doctor of osteopathic medicine and surgery. During his postdoctoral training, he became interested in survival medicine and in developing a way of quickly training preppers to become self-sufficient medics. In the years since, he has authored 4 books on DIY medicine, his first being The Prepper Pages, A Surgeon's Guide to Scavenging, the necessary items for a medical kit, and putting them to use while bugging out. Dr. Chamberlain is a professor of biomedicine living in Portland, Oregon. He has written 4 guides on survival medicine and blogs on a number of subjects, including emergency preparedness, wilderness medicine, and first aid kit building. So I highly recommend you go over and check him out. He's at www.theprepperpages.com, and you'll find a link to him on the show notes today. But I highly recommend you go over there, and I highly recommend that you pick up his book. Because, if stuff goes down, we're not going to have all our digital references anymore. The digital references are a wealth of information, and they're so awesome to have on hand. But you need those physical pieces in your fingers so that if something happens, you have those physical paper books to go and refer to. Without any further ado, let me go ahead and welcome Ryan to the show. Thank you very much for being here with me.
Well, thank you for having me.
So in the chapter of the book, Erica makes it to Cool, which is a town very close to her home. She just escapes the clutches of the Auburn gang. But unfortunately, Star is shot in the escape. A bullet rips through her leg and kills the horse. So Ryan, I'm sure you touched on this subject in your book, The Prepper Pages, and I understand that there are very different steps to take for bullet wounds depending on the location that someone is shot in. But if someone is shot in the limb, like our character Star is here, or another non-critical area, what steps should we be taking as first responders before we could get them to somebody who has more medical knowledge?
Well, this is an interesting point for a number of reasons. I think one of the first things to realize is that when people get shot, it hurts. For some reason, people really don't have that concept in their minds, neither really caregivers or the person getting shot. I think this is probably something to do with what you see on TV. People get shot, the hero kind of shakes it off and moves on. But really what you can expect if someone gets shot in a limb is they're going to drop to the ground and start screaming. So first, expect that kind of reaction. The second thing that you really need to do at that point is to try to compress the area to stop the bleeding as much as possible and get them to calm down. If they continue expressing this screaming, so on and so forth, all of that is sympathetic nervous system activation. It just increases blood pressure, and that increases blood loss. So you try to get them to calm down. Then, when they're somewhat calm, and they still might not have very good pain control, you try to get them out of the area. You fall back to some kind of safe position.
Right.
Once you're there, once you're out of immediate danger, then you can actually address the wound itself. So in situations like that, you remove the dressing that you put on, remove it slowly, and then try to irrigate out the wound as much as you can with clean water. You don't even really need sterile saline. Studies have been done that show that tap water, or hospital tap water, really, in an exam room in an ER, for instance, works just as well as sterile saline for washing out these wounds. So as long as your water is clean, you're golden. Usually what gets infected in there isn't the bullet, it isn't the projectile, it's the jeans or clothing or what have you that the person has outside the skin that is dragged into the wound with the bullet. So you're trying to flush all of that out. And if you see some of those little shards of jeans or what have you in the wound, you can reach in with some forceps, some tweezers, and pull them out. But just washing the area out well and putting a dressing on it is the big step here. We never really close these type of wounds. When I say close, I mean close them with sutures, like put stitches in, because you always want them to drain. The reason that draining is important is because if you were to close over an infected area, you'll get an abscess. And the abscess, as it grows in pressure, pushes bacteria from the abscess cavity out into your bloodstream. And that gives you septicemia, or blood poisoning, where you have bacteria everywhere and it can infect all organs. So what you do is you leave it open and allow the area to drain externally. Make sure that you always have in the back of your mind that wounds like this are going to get infected like that. They're going to drain pussy material, and when they do, that's all perfectly normal. Just keep it open, allow it to do that, and you should be okay. Now, the projectile itself is another TV myth. That is to say, in TV, the surgeon seems to always go in and try to find the bullet or take the bullet out. But we never do that in the real world. Not unless there's bleeding or we think that the bullet is up against some sensitive structure. We leave the bullets in there. And one of the reasons for that is that you can't get lead poisoning from a lead bullet. Almost immediately, the body starts walling off the lead bullet with scar tissue. So there's no way for it to leak into your system to begin with. The second reason we don't go in looking for the bullets is because it would cause more bleeding and trauma in tissues that are trying to heal from going in and trying to find the damn thing than actually pulling it out. There's just no yield to going in and getting it. So those are the main things. And the final part of all of this is that sometimes you're going to get not only infections of the cavity, the wound cavity, but the surrounding skin. The surrounding skin will look red. That surrounding skin redness is called cellulitis in medicine. And what you can do with it, and should do every 24 hours or so when you do your dressing changes, is mark the outsides of that red area with a ballpoint pen. And next dressing change in 24 hours or so, do the same thing. That way you can tell if the area of redness is expanding or it's retreating. Is it getting worse or is it getting better? If it's getting worse, at that point, you might want to start antibiotics, or fish antibiotics, I think, are most popular with preppers, in order to treat that. But all of those wounds pretty much should be survivable. The more distal they are in the arms and the legs, the more survivable they are, because the smaller the blood vessels are as they travel out toward the distal extremities. Okay. And the smaller blood vessels, well, they bleed less.
Right. You got less chance of it entering into the bloodstream there. Wow, some really great information there. I love it about you can't get lead poisoning from the lead bullets, because that's a big excuse right now why they're trying to take the lead away. And it just can't happen. So there goes your whole reason out the window right there. And then also, I never even thought about the material particles being pushed into that wound. That's very interesting, and it makes total sense. I mean, why not? Everything else is getting shoved through there. So that makes a lot of sense to look out for those kind of things. Have your tweezers handy, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
It's going to be a challenge. Remember, gunshot wounds hurt.
Right. That's not just get up and walk away. We're not all, the super tough movie hero. Oh. So without the access to medical care, we're just really worried about the infection. I loved your idea for marking it with the ballpoint pen. That's a stellar idea right there.
It seems to work well in practice.
Okay. Yeah, you could even do that with like birthmarks or whatever that they're worried about, or moles expanding or whatnot, to see if it actually is or not. So sure. That's a great idea right there. I like it. So if a patient survives, you say this is really survivable because it's down at the end. So she's probably going to recover full use of her leg in the future.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, unless you had some kind of, shattered bone or something like that in the process, that might change the game up. But just a clean in and out, we're looking at a heal up, leave it open, let it drain, which makes sense.
Yeah, and then it's up to her luck. And it looks like she's kind of on the fence as far as luck goes.
Yeah. It's coming around. It was kind of a rough start for a star there. So. Well, all right, that wraps up our discussion on the bullet holes. Oh, let me touch actually on one more thing with you. So the whole idea of using a tampon to plug a bullet hole. When is this for real? Because I've heard back and forth on it, like when it's using a normal dressing, so when you took it out of the hole, sometimes you'd be causing more damage than you would have if you didn't put it in. So when would you want to actually go to that type of measure? What kind of bullet wound are we looking at for to make that a applicable solution to get somebody to stop the bleeding?
I don't know. I have always questioned the tampon bullet wound thing. I've come across that recently, and it's a complex subject. I think that if you're in a situation where you just need to stop bleeding, then to get to a place of safety, then you can put one of those in, particularly if it's in the distal extremities, or the arms or legs. But when you're talking about the chest or the abdomen, bleeding from the abdominal wall, which is what you'd be stopping with a tampon, is not the bleeding that you're worried about. So it's only going to give you a false sense of security if someone's shot in the abdomen, someone sticks a tampon through the anterior abdominal wall and the bleeding stops. Because the bleeding that's dangerous here is probably one of the vessels feeding the bowel, and the bowel itself may have been perforated by the bullet. So it really doesn't help you with anything.
Right.
Better, I think, to look at the what's coming out as far as blood goes, if you're talking about the extremities, and try to see if there's something you can do to stop the bleeding see if the bleeding is superficial or it's really deep. And I think the best things that you could use probably are like Celox or Quick Clot, those kind of hemostatic agents that they sell. They're relatively inexpensive. And my information is that there will be a new product that's made from algae that it's just for use now or being approved for veterinary use, that you can inject. It's kind of like a polymer you can inject into the wound, and it will not only take care of the bullet tract itself like a tampon would, but also it'll spread out as far as it can once it gets inside of a cavity and try to seal off any other areas of bleeding.
Oh, so that could be helpful in like an abdominal situation, because those are nasty.
Yeah, of course it won't do anything if you get a bullet wound through the bowel, but that might not be as bad as one thinks if it's a small caliber, because the bowel can seal itself off in many instances. You see this happen with diverticulitis. People have diverticulitis, sometimes those rupture, or appendicitis, another area where the bowel ruptures and seals itself off. So the body has ways of causing inflammation to those areas and kind of isolating them with the fat, something called the greater omentum in there, kind of rolls around and encases it. And so those mechanisms are pretty good. This new medicine for veterinary use is probably going to be big with preppers when it becomes widely available, because it's for veterinary use. You know, right. It's obtainable. It's
available.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining me today, and we'll see you back here on episode 23.
Thank you, Sarah.
Now, as a special treat, I thought I would present to you some questions that Ryan had for me regarding my writing, so please enjoy me answering a few questions.
When you're writing your books, do you dictate them, or do you just type them directly?
I actually like writing by hand first.
Uh-huh.
I'm still like a pen and paper type gal, so I'll lay down a basic stream of thought on paper first, and then as I type that into the computer, it gives me time to stylize it and expand it and do things like that. So that's how I put those together.
I see. I see. Do you miss the typewriter?
No, I don't miss the typewriter at all. I'm happy with my PC. But I got a tablet, and it can't keep up with my typing speed right now. So, I'd rather just look at my page and type it in.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, I know. I have like tons of notebooks that are like all my old books, all these notebooks. So, a lot of paper.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, and then I keep a whole nother notebook that's all like my characters and camps and stuff like that.
So ideas for your characters are coming to you like just out of the blue, and you just keep notes on them to like expand their depth and so on and so forth? Oh,
right. I try to think up like a character story for each one that I might not even say in the book, but it gives you like a frame of reference of where the characters are coming from.
Your characters start out with a backstory then, is what you're saying.
Right.
Oh, that's an excellent idea.
Yeah. And sometimes it's really fun to just go internet fishing. Like you just go into some sites where, people are introducing themselves, and then they give you a scene of what their life is. So you can kind of take notes on who that person is and change their name and whatnot. And you got a character. So
very interesting.
Yeah. And then I go over to Pinterest, and there's tons of pictures of people. So I'll actually get a picture of a person and print that picture out and put it in my notebook. And that way I'm always looking at that same person that's, my idea for my character, my person, and my story.
Right. Do you find that it's the characters that make the story?
In my stories, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's all, it's drama-based. It's more about what humans are doing to adapt to a changing planet.
Were you born with the ability to write that? Or was it something that evolved, or was it a both?
I'm going to say I was probably born with it. I liked doing poetry and stuff like that when I was younger to kind of express emotions and get them off my chest.
Uh-huh.
And then really I started doing novels when I was doing so much business writing, because my business instructors didn't want me to use like any flowery words or any imagination, right? They were like, you have to tone it down. It's got to be straight to the point. And I'm like, I don't like writing that way. So that's when I started writing my book.
Oh, huh. When was your first one?
Well, that's my first one. I started like 8 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And I just kind of dabbled on it here and I dabbled on it there. I never had like the intention of I'm going to write a book and publish it.
Mm-hmm.
That never really crossed my mind. It was just I had the story in my head. and I wanted to get it out onto paper.
Right.
So I did that, and then once I put the end on it, my mom was like, "You wrote a whole book, you have to publish it."
Sure.
I was like, "Okay, I guess, I don't know if people like my story, but whatever." And it's actually been really a fun ride. So
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I always give her a hard time. I'm like, "You're the one who started all this." So
I'm sure she's very proud of that.
yeah, yeah. Thanks, Ryan, for being here. It's such an honor to have you on the show. I just learned so much from you every time I got to speak to you about the survival medicine topics. Just so many things that you hadn't considered, and as a layman, you just wouldn't consider. So it's such an honor to have you on the show, and I really appreciate you bringing your knowledge to the show. So now let's go ahead and get into review time. It's time for review time. Got an opinion? I'd love to hear it. Go ahead and give me your 2 cents on Day After Disaster or the Changing Earth podcast. Head on over to Amazon or iTunes to give me your 2 cents. Today, I have a couple of cool reviews to bring to you. The first review was a review I was highly stoked to get. I had first met James Hart in a book marketing program, and I just really took to him. And obviously, we formed a great friendship since then. He's been on my show. I've gone down to Texas to visit with him. And I just keep picking his brain because this guy has got a wealth of survival knowledge. And it's just such an honor to know this man. So when I first met him, I gave him a copy of my book to review. And this is what he had to say. He gave it a 5-star rating, and he said, highly recommended. Day After Disaster by Sarah Hathaway is a riveting read that will hold you to your seat throughout each page as you follow the heroine on her journey from one deadly disaster to another in search for her family. Sarah has done a superb job of writing and consuming our attention. Sarah has handled her first novel professionally and handed it to us gracefully. Easily read but hard to get away from, this novel will haunt you while you're away from it. I found the strong character and personality of the main character was carried well throughout the book and worked well with all the characters and situations without being overwhelming. The imagination and expertise used through the book in the different situations were well thought out and indeed very possibly of use in a survival situation of the same types. 5 stars to you, Sarah. Very well done, James E. Hart. And, like I said, I just couldn't appreciate this review more. Coming from a man like James, to hear that the things were actually possible that I was thinking up, and just to hear how much he respected my opinions was really, really cool. So thank you, James. I appreciate it. I'm hoping you're enjoying the second book. And I'm eager to hear all your thoughts and opinions on that one as well. So the next review that I'm going to bring to you today is from Sarah Kendall. And she gave me a 5-star review as well. And she says, slow to start, but cranks up. The book starts out slow. Mainly, I believe, to get an understanding of the main character. But after chapter 3, it gets cranking. The author did a good job on writing to enhance the vision of the book. I could visualize what was going on in the book. Hard to put down. Nicely done. Well, thanks very much, Sarah. And as I mentioned before, I started it out the way that I did as kind of an ode to one of my favorite authors, Jean M. Auel. She's the author of the Children of the Earth series. And The Valley of the Horses is the book that I really, really loved. And the whole first half of it, it's a dual story at the same time, but the first half of it starts out with the main character, Ayla, and she is basically in a cave living on her own, learning how to, not learning how to, but using her survival skills to hunt and to make baskets and to make pitfall traps and, stock up for the winter and tan hides and things like that. And so I really love those books. So that's why I started out my book that way, as kind of an ode to her. I want to thank everyone who goes out and gives me a review. I appreciate each and every one of them. I take them all into consideration, and I think about how the audience is reflecting upon my book and, tips that you would have for me for the future. So I do really appreciate the reviews. I encourage you to go out and leave one yourself because they really go a long way for an author on Amazon. I also want to thank you for being here and listening to the show today. I love to have you out there listening, and I love hearing your feedback over at the Facebook group. So don't forget to go over there as well and sign up to the Changing Earth group. We'd love to have you as part of our community, learning survival techniques and hanging out with us. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Until next time, remember, dream, survive, thrive.
Thank you for joining Sarah for this episode of the Changing Earth podcast. Don't forget to pick up your copy of Day After Disaster at www.authorSarahFhathaway.com. If you love this podcast, please head over to iTunes and let everyone know by leaving a review.